When Obama and Biden came in, there was actually a net negative of missing workers in the economy. Those are Americans of prime working age who become so discouraged they give up looking for work. Those Americans aren't counted in the unemployment rate because they are no longer actively seeking a job. You could call them forgotten.
Every day, I wake up determined to deliver a better life for the people all across this nation that have been ignored, neglected, and abandoned. I have visited the laid-off factory workers and the communities crushed by our horrible and unfair trade deals. These are the forgotten men and women of our country, and they are forgotten, but they're not going to be forgotten long.
The number of missing workers skyrocketed after the passage of the Obama-Biden stimulus. From January 2009 to July 2009, the number of missing workers went from net negative 100,000 to 120,000. By December 2009, 2.1 million Americans had dropped out of the labor force. For the remainder of the Obama-Biden administration, they never turned it around, peaking at 3.9 million missing workers in September 2015, but still 2.3 million forgotten men and women in November 2016. When it was all said and done, 10 million jobs had been created, but 14.6 million more Americans had left the labor force. And about those 10 million Obama-Biden jobs, 94% of them were part-time. A study by Lawrence Katz of Harvard and Alan Kruger of Princeton found temporary jobs during the Obama era increased from 10.7% to 15.8% of the population. Quote, female workers suffered most heavily in the Obama-Biden economy as full-time jobs disappeared in the medical and education fields. I wonder why. Obamacare didn't just mess with your healthcare plans.
Now, let me just start by setting the record straight on a few things I've been hearing out here about reform. Under the reform we're proposing, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. If you like your health care plan, you can keep your health care plan.
If you like your health care plan, your employer-based plan, you can keep it.
Obamacare added 109 regulations and 10,535 pages of red tape, including government mandates that incentivized cutting hours and disincentivized hiring. The Obama-Biden regulatory regime crippled innovation. In 2016, the Federal Register totaled 97,110 pages, smashing all records and costing the economy trillions every year. For us, the forgotten man wasn't some poll-tested slogan created by overpaid DC consultants and ripped off from the United Nations.
Folks, it's not sufficient to build back. We have to build back better. That's what my plan is, to build back better.
The forgotten man was real. And building back better? That's what President Trump did when he came to Washington and he corrected the Obama-Biden years of big government, bad economic policies, and bad trade deals. President Trump immediately reversed course, throwing out 22 regulations for every new one in the first year. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act resulted in an economic boom, making America a good place to invest in again, and proving all the experts wrong.
Beating expectations. We're going to dig through the numbers.
36,000 jobs added in manufacturing last month, though. That was much higher than expectations.
I think this is almost double what the expectations were. Quite a number, Allison.
Yeah, this number blowing away expectations. As you said,
263,000 jobs were added just last month, easily beating expectations. The unemployment rate, 3.6%. That's the lowest rate since 1969, folks. Hourly wage growth saw gains as well, up more than 3% from a year ago.
All right, so the numbers, like President Trump did say, were better than expectations.
All right, breaking news. The Labor Department just released the November jobs report, and it is a big number. Chief Business Correspondent Christine Roman's here with that.
Hey guys, a strong number, 266,000 net new jobs. This blows away expectations.
Non-farm payrolls rose by 273,000 jobs in February, well above expectations.
In 2014, 5 years after Obama and Biden's so-called recovery began, the New York Times reported the unemployment rate had fallen entirely because people stopped looking for work, not because they had found jobs. And wages had not risen by even a penny. The single best gauge of the economic recovery, according to the New York Times, was wage growth. And that's exactly what President Trump delivered. In the first 6 months of 2019 alone, workers' pay increased by $150 billion more than the entirety of 2016. Clearly not a continuation of the Obama-Biden years. Workers at the bottom half began making twice as much the gains in wages as those in the top half. And for the first 3 years of the Trump presidency, manufacturing production grew at an annual rate 11 times higher than during the last 3 years of Obama-Biden. And the biggest winners? Women and minorities. After declining during Obama and Biden's second term, the number of women-owned businesses added per day doubled under President Trump. People were coming off the sidelines in record numbers. Throughout the entire Obama-Biden administration, there was never even a single month where there were more job openings than the number of those unemployed. That all changed with President Trump and pro-growth policies. In June 2018, for the first time on record, the number of American job openings exceeded the number of job seekers. But we didn't stop there. Job openings and hiring hit all-time records. More and more Americans were able to quit their jobs and find better ones. And best of all, the new jobs were going to forgotten Americans. Forgotten no more.
We are experiencing inclusive growth like America's never seen. And that's the byproduct of pro-growth policies that have been put in place. In the fourth quarter of this past year, of all the new jobs created, 74% of them came from the sidelines. Not unemployment. The sidelines, they were completely outside of the workforce.
In fact, in January 2020, the White House Council of Economic Advisors reported the number of Americans coming back into the workforce was at its highest levels since they began keeping track. The influx of workers brought the labor force participation rate for prime-age adults up to 82.9% in December, adding 2.3 million people to the worker pool since President Trump was elected. The Trump-Pence economy could not be stopped, unless you artificially stopped it, which is what we had to do when confronting the pandemic from communist China. But shutting down isn't a solution forever, which is the only thing Joe Biden has to offer. He was wrong about his stimulus, and he was wrong about the V-shaped recovery.
Investors are expecting a sharp snapback, a V-shaped recovery. You have economists and other advisors in your midst. Does this make sense to you? Do you expect a V-shaped recovery?
No, I don't.
Much better than expected. Non-farm payroll employment rose by 2.5 million jobs in May. Unemployment rate falling to 13.3%.
Jobless rate at 11.1%. That's a drop, so that's a positive.
Big hiring, 4.8 million jobs hired in June. Those are people going back to work.
A lot of the jobs that have been lost since the pandemic are being recovered. No question, it was a much better number than was expected.
1.4 million, unemployment rate falls to 8.4%. That's a big decline here.
People returning from temporary layoff. That's good news. That's the healing. That's the reopening.
If you had told me 5 months ago we were going to have an unemployment rate less than 8%, I would have said I thought you were smoking something.
By every measure, manufacturing, auto, housing, and jobs, this is a SuperV recovery. 10 million new jobs in just 4 months. Is there more work to do? Absolutely. But this SuperV shows the fundamentals of the Trump economy are as strong and Americans are as tough as ever. But all of that would go away with Joe Biden, who would bring the same empty promises, but even more disastrous results with the new radical Democrat agenda to hike taxes by $4 trillion, an all-out war on oil and natural gas, and a Green New Deal regulatory regime that would make the Obama years look like child's play. But Joe Biden says now, after 47 years, he's really serious about delivering results.
Reduce our energy cost and reduce our health care costs.
The only question is when. That's the only question.
Now.
Everyone will be cut in on the deal this time as we rebuild the middle class. This time bringing everyone along. Everybody.
This time we know better.
If I can get health care for every American, if I can make sure that the economy is providing jobs that pay a decent wage, if I can solve this energy problem so that we're more secure, if I can make an education system work for every child, then that's going to be good for Black Americans.
African American unemployment has again just reached its lowest rate ever recorded in the history of our country.
That's going to be good for Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans.
Hispanic American and Asian American unemployment rates have reached the lowest levels in history.
White Americans, that's going to be good for everybody.
Did you overpromise? Did you underestimate how difficult this was going to be?
I didn't overpromise, and I didn't underestimate how tough this was going to be. That was going to take time. It was going to take more than a year. It was going to take more than 2 years. It was going to take more than one term. Probably takes more than one president.
It turned out it only took one president. And we know with President Trump, the best is yet to come.